So the World Bank has recently released a report titled Water for Shared Prosperity. That is why, of course, it's in news. So there are, when the World Bank releases reports, these reports are of different kinds in the sense that some of the reports would probably be released every year, year on year, sort of permanent, they keep on getting released. But some of the reports may be released maybe just once and maybe never again, right? So it depends on the exigency or the requirement of that particular time period. So now here for the during the World Forum, during the World Water Forum, this particular report was released of Water for Shared Prosperity. Now let us look at what this report is all about. What does it talk about? What are the key findings of the report, and anything and everything with respect to this report which is important for our examination. So this particular report was released at the 10th World Water Forum. So this becomes important, which took place in Bali, Indonesia, right? Now the report is titled Water for Shared Prosperity. So water for shared prosperity, that means they are talking specifically about shared prosperity of water. So how does World Bank define shared prosperity? It defines shared prosperity as boosting prosperity, particularly for the poorest to achieve more equitable societies. Now in the question for UPSC, even this can be asked as a prelims question as one of the statement. What they will do is, instead of mentioning particularly for poorest, they may write particularly for Africa, particularly for Asia. So this is how your questions are made, keeping the entire statement as it is and just changing one word. That's all. So please remember, it is about boosting prosperity, particularly for the poorest to achieve more equitable societies. Now, what are the key findings? The key findings talks about firstly the interconnectedness of two things, of four such things, or let's say four pairs of such things. So the very first is health and education, that gives you human capital, jobs and income, peace and social cohesion, that gives you social capital, and environment, that gives you natural capital. Now here also jobs and income may be termed as economic capital, but the report does not term it as economic capital and leaves it as it is. It just terms the other three, that is health and education, peace and social cohesion, that is social capital, this is human capital, and environment as natural capital, whereas jobs and income are not defined as any kind of capital, which can be an economic capital, but the report does not define them. This is also very important to remember, these four pairings. What are the other findings? The other findings say that the population growth, urbanization and climate change, three things. One is population growth, second is urbanization. By urbanization, what do we understand? For example, the concrete jungle that is being built up, right? When there is a concrete layer, concrete pavement, the water does not percolate, the groundwater table cannot be replenished, and indiscriminate use of water also takes place. Increasing population means more utilization or more requirement of water. Plus there is climate change. When there is climate change, there is weather extremities. See, weather extremities as in there would be drought kind of situation as well as flood kind of situation. Now in flood there is water, but then also what happens is, see, if a rain of let's say 50 centimeters takes place over a period of 1 month, it gives the time for the soil, for the earth to absorb that water. Now if this 50 centimeter of rainfall takes place very quickly, what happens is the water gets runoff. It converts into runoff and runs off into the oceans, and it does not percolate down to the ground, and hence water table is not recharged, right? So that is another issue. And if there is drought, there is no water, that is another issue. So this climate change, as in the extremities of the climate is, or the weather is actually hampering. Now in 2022, 197 million people lack safe drinking water. 211 million people lack basic sanitation. Okay, so that is a huge number. Globally, around 450 million people live in high poverty and low water access. High poverty and low water access, there is an overlap of poverty as well as what you can say, proper water access. There is an overlap. Overlap as in higher the poverty, worse would be the water availability scenario. And that is why, remember the objective of the report, shared prosperity with special focus on the poorest. It also talks about the concept of hotspots. That's what just now I said, the parallel of the poorest being the least accessible for proper water. So in low income countries, access to water services is available in less than half of the schools. So less than 50% of the school has proper water in low income countries. Right. Now, what does it do? What does it lead to? This inadequate and unsafe water affects early childhood development. So these socio-economic backwardness, these poverty-ridden places having not proper water available or sanitation available would lead to issues with the early childhood development. In these places, you will also find higher number of neonatal mortalities, infant mortalities and child mortalities. Right. Apart from that, climate change is there, which leads to extreme weather conditions, as I said, floods, droughts, disrupting further growth and learning. If everything is taken away in the flood, it disrupts the learning. If you don't have drinking water, people can die. All these things are damaging and causing an impact. Now, what are the recommendations for inclusive water security? Recommendation is resilience to extreme hydroclimatic risks. Climate change is there. We know that we need to resist it. We need to be resilient from with it. So how can we be resilient? Doing certain things. For example, rainwater harvesting is one such thing, right? Those kind of things can be done. Growing proper crop in proper region with respect to the availability of the water in that particular region. For example, you should not be growing water guzzling crop in drought prone areas, right? So those are the measures which will, measures in every field, not just agriculture, but industrial also. Industry is getting set up at a place where there is less groundwater, but utilizing the drilling, boring machine and pumping machine and taking out all the waters from the surrounding region also. So again, that is not proper. So agriculture sector, be it industrial sector, all the different sector needs to work together and have resilience. Our resilience needs to improve to fight this. Now, apart from that, improve water resource development and allocation. What happens is, if your extraction of water is faster than its rate of replenishment, it will keep going down. So you need to ensure that your water resource development is such that the replenishment should be faster than its depletion. Then safely managing water supply and sanitation. You need to properly manage also. You need to avoid leakages also. One important thing, there are certain surveys which found out that places where the availability water is not proper leads to higher wastage. Why is that the case? That is because, you know, you have big utensils, drums at house. Now what you do is, you don't know about water, so you store all this water. Now what happens? You have stored this water, or you have utilized only up to this level. More than half is still available. But again, next day the water comes. So what do? Will you add in the remaining portion? No, you dump it all out, you wash it again and you fill the water again. So what has happened? This amount of water is wasted. If you would have had a surety of water availability, you would not be required to store and waste water. So there are all these things which needs to be understood, and the management and supply of water and sanitation should be proper. So this is the equitable and inclusive water security for shared prosperity. We know there is climate change, for which, as we understood, we need to build resilient infrastructure, improve the resource development and allocation, plus improve equitable and inclusive service delivery with the focus on poorest region or poorest area where water supply is even worse. Now, this report was released in World Water Forum. What is World Water Forum? It is held every 3 years, very important fact, co-hosted by World Water Council. This is one party. The other party is the host country. So whichever country is taking place, that country along with World Water Council will host it. The objective is to raise the importance of water and support discussion towards resolution of international water issues. So raise the importance and support the discussion regarding solving the water issues in the entire world. Now, we have talked about this report. Now let us have a quick look at other reports which the World Bank brings out. World Development Report, Global Economic Prospect Report, Remittance Report, Ease of Living Index, India Development Update, Universal Health Coverage, Service Trade Restriction Index. All these are the few important reports of World Bank which it brings out. One important report you should remember about is the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Report. Now, this was also brought out by World Bank, but now it has stopped. So remember about this as well. Alright. So that was all about the recently released report of the World Bank. Thank you.